All right, this is the 1859 jail over in Independence, and we were lucky enough to get a tour, and so we will take a short tour with you.
Hi, my name is Kaija Laney. I manage the 1859 Jail Museum, and I'm going to give you a tour today of the building. Right now we are inside the Marshal's home, which we also call the jailer's home. The room that we're standing in now is the kitchen. It does not look like the kitchen though. Right now it is our gift shop, bookstore. But when we restored it in 1959, they took pretty much all of the elements of the kitchen out of this room. So when you look at this fireplace, you can't really imagine cooking in it because it's not big enough to cook in. They could have had a big stove out in front of it, but we don't know because we don't have pictures of that. We're going to go outside into our courtyard next, which would have been jail yard, but now it is our courtyard and it leads to the Howard Schoolhouse, and then you can get a better visual of the limestone jail and the brick jail as well. So we like to come out to the courtyard so that you can see the difference in the two jail structures. When you first enter the museum, you enter into the jailer's home. It's a brick federal style building that was built in front of the jail, and it was meant to kind of hide the jail from the public's eye, and it really does a good job of that even to this day. A lot of people come by and they don't even notice that it's here. They've lived here their whole lives and they've never been to see the jail. The brick building and then the limestone addition were built in 1859. The limestone jail has 6 cells on the bottom, 6 cells on top. They were meant to hold 3 to 5 people. We've heard rumors during the Civil War it could have held up to 20 people in each cell, but they're pretty small and we could never really find any evidence to corroborate that. But it is a fun story we like to tell just for people to imagine what it could have been like. The brick addition was built in 1907. It was built to house the Jackson County chain gang. There were quite a lot more cells, and they were made out of iron bars. And the Jackson County chain gang built a lot of the roads that we still use today. And out back, before we go inside, we've got the Howard Schoolhouse, which is not original to the property. It was built in 1870 in Lee Summit, Missouri, which is not super far from here. But in 1960, the family donated it to Jackson County Historical Society, and we picked it up, we moved it here, and now we use it to educate kids on what school was like in the 1800s. It's a one-room schoolhouse. The founder of Lee Summit, William Bullitt Howard, built this schoolhouse for his kids to be educated in. They used it from 1870 to 1880, and then they didn't use it after that. An interesting connection, William Bullitt Howard actually spent time in our jail during Order Number 11 because he and his family were asked to leave town or sign the oath to the Union. He wouldn't do it, so they threw him in jail here. Finally, he said, "Listen, I don't want to be in jail anymore. I'll leave the state." They still made him pay a huge fine before he left the state. But somehow his property, including the schoolhouse, did not burn during Order Number 11 like a lot of other places did in the area. So that's why we're so lucky enough to have this structure.
And I was able to get a little closer to the schoolhouse and give you a good view of that.
We are inside the 1907 addition. It's now a gallery space for the Jackson County Historical Society. We house many different pieces and parts of our collection, and we like to rotate the exhibits out every so often so everything can get a fresh new eye and visitors can see new things when they come in and visit. If you take a look over the windows, you can see where the bars used to be, where they were cut out. And to give you an idea of what size the cell would be, they would be about the width of the window. There were quite a few back here. I want to say roughly 25 to 30. I can't remember the exact number. It's a little tough, but now we house a lot of interesting things in here. Another important thing that we talk about in this space is that one of our two hangings that occurred happened in this space. Before 1907, this would have all been jail yard. It would have been outside.
It's kind of odd to be standing in the building and realize that that building wasn't there during the first hanging, and this is where the gallows would have been built and that sort of thing.
So the first hanging that happened here would have been in this area. This was jail yard before 1907, and the first hanging here occurred in 1887. The first hanging was Ed Sneed. His hanging would have been right in this area. They would have built a gallows specifically for him. And
all right. I will apologize because there are some maintenance going on. You'll see that in some of the next clips. You can hear the saws in the background or whatever types of tools that they're using out there. They're replacing some windows. They're shoring up some of the foundation. They're redoing the marshal's office. These are all necessary items that have to be done. Unfortunately, it does interfere on some of the sound of the clips. So bear with us on that. Thank you.
He got into an argument with a man and shot him in cold blood. But he did spend a lot of his life in and out of jail and workhouses. I think I read somewhere that he spent like 2/3 of his life in and out of the criminal justice system. So I don't think he ever would have made it out, really. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll go this way.
Now we're entering the lower jail cell.
Yes, we are entering the limestone cell block. These are very thick blocks. They were quarried in Rock Creek, which is not far from here. But the blocks are about a foot thick. They're very heavy. And they would have been brought over here from Rock Creek by horses and wagons. I can't imagine having to quarry that and then bring it over here to build it. It was started in 1859. They completed it in the spring of 1860. And if you want to take a look at some of these cells, they are not very big. The doors are all original. They're all iron louvered. And the windows, we added the glass after we turned it into a museum in 1959. Prior to that, it would have been exposed to the elements. So bugs could have gotten in, rodents could have gotten in, snow, rain, heat, all of the different elements. You also wouldn't have gotten many amenities either. You would have had to share a bucket to go to the bathroom. And the jailer was responsible for feeding all of the prisoners. And so sometimes his wife would cook for the prisoners, and sometimes they would trust another inmate to do the cooking as well. It just kind of depended on who was in office here. The jailer switched out pretty often. It was an appointed position. Normally, whoever was the head marshal chose all of the people underneath him, and then he would decide who would be jailer at that point. The jailer got to live in the house with his family. It was a perk of the job. The meal would have been probably some bread, maybe beans, weak coffee. Would not have been anything good at all to eat. Another thing we like to point out in this area is right behind you is Frank James' cell. He's one of our most famous prisoners. Frank James is Jesse James' brother. After Jesse was killed, he turned himself in to the governor of Missouri, and he was put on trial for the charges of robbery and murder. So they kept him here for roughly 4 to 6 months until he was acquitted of the charges. And he got a lot of perks in that room, as you can see. No one else got a bed or a carpet. He got visitors every day. He was able to play poker with the jailer. His wife came and visited him in the parlor, and they would spend time out there. No one else got those perks. We even had a jailer at the time who was fired because he took Frank James to the opera on the county's money. And no one was happy about that, so he lost his job pretty quickly. But this way we can kind of peek into the marshal's office. It's still under construction right now. We've got a renovation project going on, but we can still kind of peek in there a little bit. So this past May, we started work on the foundation, shoring up the corner of the building so that it didn't fall over. And we also have gotten our windows fixed, and we're getting new doors as well. So it's a lot of important things to keep the house in good shape and preserved for future generations. You can't really tell because there's a lot of stuff going on there, but that would have been the marshal's office or the jailer's office. Many different people and job descriptions worked out of that office, in and out. The jailer was in charge of this building and the prisoners here, but the county marshal also stopped in and used the office. Deputy county marshals, they were in and out. So that's why it has a front door entrance, so that they could use that front door for strictly business.
Cool.
And we'll come this way. And then this door would have been used to bring in prisoners from the back. Because you wouldn't want the spectacle of bringing somebody in the front door off the street, especially if they were drunk, or if they were a really, not famous murderer, but somebody that was really big in the news at the time. You kind of wanted some privacy, so they bring them in the back door through the jail yard. And we do have a lot of mugshots in our collection that show this limestone wall in the background. There would have been a door here to keep the family separated from the jail. This would have been the only door that connected the jail to the family. Even though when we go around, you'll see a lot more doors. Those were added after we were decommissioned as a jail. That's something else I should mention. This jail was in use from 1859 until 1933. There was a small break during Prohibition in 1920, but if you know anything about Prohibition in Kansas City, we didn't really have any, so they had to reopen the jail because they were still arresting a lot of people. So I'll have you come this way. This is the family's parlor. This is where the jailer and his family would spend time. One of our jailer's wives was a piano teacher, and so she taught students in here. Many of the different families had different sized children, or different sized groups of children. Mm-hmm. So some had 6 kids, some had 2 kids. So you just imagine them spending time knitting in here or reading books together. They wouldn't have eaten dinner in here, but we have it set up as a kitchen table just for the time being. That door over there would not have been there while the jail was in use. We added that later, or it was added later by the Community Welfare League. After we were decommissioned in 1933, the Community Welfare League actually used this building for Depression-era works projects. So this room would have been a job employment agency. We would have had canning vegetables. We would have had sewing and textiles. I even read once that there was possibly a daycare here. So they really wanted to put the citizens of Jackson County to work and get them going while repression was going on. And adding the doors made it easier for the workflow to keep going.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're going to go.
Alright, we are going to head upstairs. The stairs are a little steep, so just be careful when you are heading up here.
And then I think I will turn around at the top and point back down.
Okay, so this is the master bedroom, the jailer's bedroom. We have it set up for the Bugler family, who's got, by the end of their time here, they had 7 children. Henry Bugler was our first jailer, and he was actually the newly elected city marshal in 1866 when tragedy struck. Normally we tell this story in the marshal's office, but I can't do that today. So, late one night in June of 1866, someone pounds on the door down at the marshal's office, and Henry Bugler goes to answer it. There's 4 or 5 guys standing outside demanding, "Let our friend out. He's in jail right now. Let him out." And Henry Bugler is like, "No, I'm not letting him out. Go away." They shoot Henry, and they break their friend out of jail. Their friend's name was Joab Perry, who was a horse thief, and he also frequented the James Younger gangs. They never caught him or rearrested him, but Henry Bugler died that night, and one of his young sons was actually shot as well in the scuffle. They also tried to set the house on fire, but it did not succeed. So our very first jailer was murdered in the doorway downstairs. His wife, Mary, was pregnant with their 7th child, and when her husband died, she took over operations at the jail. So she's pregnant with her 7th child. She's taking care of 6. They also say that she was taking care of county orphans. So she had a lot on her plate to take care of all of those kids, plus the inmates. Would not have been a fun time.
No, not at all.
No. We have this little offshoot bedroom set up for a child, but it really could have been anything. It could have been a sewing room, it could have been a closet, maybe a bathroom of the time. We just don't know because we don't have pictures or a lot of first-hand accounts. We have maybe here and there a few little blurbs, but not a lot because we're still doing research on it. We've got this picture of the twins that were born here. That is Helen and Louise Ross. They were born to J.B. Ross and Ella Ross. The Ross family lived here from 1887 to 1896. Lived here a long time. And the twins were actually born here in the house. The interesting connection with the Ross family, their oldest boy, Charlie Ross, went to school with Harry Truman. And in turn became Harry Truman's press secretary during Harry Truman's time as our president. And then in a sudden turn of events, Harry Truman actually helped us get our first donation to become a museum.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, you imagine Harry Truman just walking by here with his friend who lived here, and then he ended up saving the place back in the day. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah. So we'll go through the other children's bedroom. And the last room, you can't really see, there's no light and there's no window in there right now, but we like to call it Grandma's room. The Ross family, they had 4 children, Mr. Ross, the jailer, and then his wife Ella. They actually also had Ella's mother live with them, and she stayed in this far end room. She actually ended up dying in 1894 of tuberculosis. But she was very instrumental in the children's lives that lived here. We know that because they actually donated a lot of their memoirs to the Truman Library.
Okay.
So we know a lot about their time here because of what they've told to the Truman Library. But Fanny was a very proud Virginian woman, very strict, very about education, about being proper. Yeah.
Cool.
And so this door was added later on during the Works era administration. It's really weird when people come up here and they see this door because they think, oh, this is so weird, you're so close to the prisoners, which you are, but back then there would have been a very thick layer in between. But you might have still been able to hear
Some.
what was going on in here. This is the second floor, cells. Up here you get a better view of the where the second hanging took place. We have a cage built around it now for safety because we don't want anyone to fall in the hole, because right now it is just a hole. There used to be a staircase that went up the side, and then that hole would have been the only way you could get to the second floor. Until they added the 1907 edition on, then that added more space and then another door. Now that's just collection storage back there on the top floor. The other part, during order number 11, full families were imprisoned, and so during this time, women and children would spend time up here when they were imprisoned. We don't really know how long they stayed, but we do know that they kept women separate from men. So later on, as well, when women were thrown in jail for various crimes, they would have been separated out from the men.
Now, I don't know about you, but it's been a minute or two since I've done any studying of the history of the Civil War. And this is the second time that I've heard Order Number 11. What is Order Number 11?
All right, and what is Order Number 11?
So Order Number 11 was an order that was enacted by General Ewing during the Civil War, which stated you had to pledge your oath to the Union. So you had to sign a paper that said that you would not support the South. A lot of people in this area did not want to be a part of it in any way. They said, we'll just stay in our house. We're not going to be for either side. Just leave us alone. And the Union said, no, we want to make sure that no one is helping our enemies, essentially. So they said, if you can't sign this oath, you need to leave. You got to leave the country, or not the country, I'm sorry. You need to leave the county. There were 6 counties included. I believe it was Jackson, Johnson, Clay, Cass. It was all right around Jackson County. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was more of the suburban, not the rural areas, where there was more like amenities. But people had to leave, and if they didn't leave, they'd be fined a lot of money. So a lot of people picked up and they went back to where they had family in different parts of the country, and then they returned after the Civil War. And so when they left, a lot of Union troops went through and they burned a bunch of houses just because they didn't want the South to get any of the amenities, or no food, no lodging, no tools, that kind of thing. It was very much an act of war to try and...
Scorched earth.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Now you've taken a very short and sweet tour of the 1859 Jail Museum. We're located on the historic Independence Square, and we invite you to come back out, take a longer, more in-depth tour, ask more questions. We're still open even during the renovation, and we're almost done with our renovation, so it'll be really great for people to come in and see when everything's bright, new, and shiny. Come on out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.